Good day. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. It's Monday, December the 20th, and we've got CEO Dave Dineson of Cubicfarm Systems joining us. Cubicfarms develops and manufactures highly efficient, modular, automated growing systems for fresh produce and livestock feed that can be deployed close to the end user almost anywhere in the world. I've known the Cubicfarm story for many years and was immediately enamored with the technology. It seems to be a great solution in a world with growing uncertainties and tackles many of the problems we're facing. Their systems are highly energy and water efficient and can be placed almost anywhere in the world, mitigating many problems, including water shortages and supply chain issues, as we've all gotten used to over the last years, especially us here in Vancouver, where we've been suffering from some very un-COVID related supply chain issues that have definitely hit the grocery stores. So these solutions puts everything closer to the end user, making communities and farmers much more self-sufficient. I'm a shareholder. There's a huge opportunity for this, and I'm looking for better insight in how Cubicfarm is tackling this giant opportunity. But remember, this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company, do your due diligence, and come to your own investment conclusions. Dave, thank you for joining us. And please tell us about Cubicfarm Systems.
Thanks, Martin. It's great to see you, and good afternoon, everyone. I'll take you through a deck, and I've got a couple quick videos that'll actually show you our technology, so hopefully you'll enjoy what you see here. Great. So Cubicfarms is a local chain ag tech company. So we develop automated indoor growing technologies, and we focus on the technology side. So we're not growing produce. We're not actually growing feed ourselves. We develop the technology. We sell that to farmers and help them to grow locally what heretofore they've had to import from faraway places. And we focus on the mechanization and the automation of commercial scale indoor farming. And I'll say right off the bat, we're a real company. We have sales, revenue, we've got customers you can visit, we've got a significant pipeline, we've won lots of awards lately. So I'm saying this to say we are a real business, and I welcome you to visit us if it's ever convenient. We've actually launched this category of local chain ag tech. So just like Uber brought the category of ride sharing into existence, we've launched local chain ag tech. And we are leading that category. Just a little bit about the company. We've sold several and installed several systems, almost 100 of them to date between our two divisions of our business. And we have a significant pipeline that we have contracts and deposits for. So when people ask me, what's your revenue looking like over the next 12 to 18 months, I point to this as we have these deals already in hand. Our systems are patented, and we've just launched a dealer network on the HydroGreen side of our business that'll really escalate sales, and I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. But all of this sort of underscoring we're a real business, and we're just at that nice scale up part of our evolution. We've been public for about a little over 2 years. This summer, we uplisted to the TSX. We're a very clean company, very little debt. We're fairly significantly insider owned, which we're very proud of. And we've attracted some of the world's leading ag tech investors and now sustainability fund out of Europe. And so we're very excited and proud of our shareholders. So these are the two divisions of our company: Cubicfarms for growing food for people, and then HydroGreen for growing feed for livestock. Both have very large total addressable markets. And interestingly, the feed side of the business, which most people probably don't understand as readily, we all understand needing to eat vegetables, but we don't realize how large the livestock feed opportunity is, and it's actually even larger. And I'll be taking you through both of those. So why does this business need to exist at this point in history? There's sort of 4 underlying points that I like to take people through. One is we're living on a planet where food security has only been exacerbated of late due to the pandemic, but we are in a time where this is a real risk to our planet. We're on a planet that's going to double its population in the next 40 years, and yet we're already using 100% of the world's available fresh water for human consumption and for agriculture. And it's the same with our agricultural lands. We're already using all of the ag land that's available for both farming and livestock. And so we've got to do far more with the land and the water that we have if we need to produce twice as much in the not too distant future. And today, about a third of the world relies on food imports, and that's going to go to about half the planet by the middle of the century. And then, of course, today we live at a time where most of our food comes from large central farms that are far away. And so we burn a lot of diesel fuel and jet fuel to get that food from those large farms to where we all live. And that does two things. One, it has us as reliant on the supply chain as we are on that large centralized farm, which introduce significant risk. And then, of course, you burn a lot of fossil fuels while you're moving all of that food from where it's grown to where people actually are consuming it, which only exacerbates climate change, which is already impacting agriculture around the world. So we need technology that lets us grow what we eat where we live, and that's what we do. We develop technology that lets you grow food for people and feed for livestock with less land, water, energy, and labor, and do it at commercial scale where people live. So the first technology I'll take you through is our Cubicfarm technology, and that's growing food for people. So how would we replace this beautiful field of salad products, if you will, that's probably in Salinas, California, or in Arizona? How would we do that and do it anywhere on Earth near where people live? I'll just show you this quick video. The video playing okay, Martin?
Yeah, it seems to be good.
Great. So here we are at our Pitt Meadows Research Center. This is a small collection of a dozen of our Cubicfarm growing machines. And it's a stainless steel food grade growing chamber. And the machine is built into the walls, the ceiling, the floor. And this is our patented crop motion technology. I'm just going to pause it here. But this path is patented and built. The exoskeleton of that machine is built into the walls and the floor and the ceiling of that machine. And this lets us do what really no other vertical farm is able to do. We have one row of light at the top, yet we have hundreds of trays that move throughout the machine from the top, or from the front to the back to the front again, so that you can literally stand at the front and every tray of plant will come to the front. So you can do all of your harvesting and all of your planting very, very efficiently. It's physically light and easy work. And you use every cubic foot of space for growing. You don't have to leave hallways for people.
Dave, your production chamber there, that's essentially built into the shape of a standard shipping container, right? Is that the basic modular size?
That's exactly right. Although they are custom built and stainless steel inside and out, insulated, and the exoskeleton of the machine is built into the wall, the ceiling, and the floor. And then we can manufacture them centrally and then ship them on any train, any truck, any boat. So they arrive 90% complete, the team quickly finishes, and now you're growing. And now you have a growing chamber that you can then optimize for growing. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. But the machine uses very little water. The water the plant doesn't use is actually recaptured and reused. And it's a very flexible patent. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. But there's sort of an exploded view of the one row of light on the top, and yet hundreds of trays moving up to the light and away from the light from the front and to the back and to the front again. We have centralized air ducting to move around the environment. Now watch this very closely. This is the same machine, but now the machine is configured to propagate. So you see that tray going up? And it's now dropping back down. It's going up, it's watering the bottom of that tray, and now it's going back down. I'm just going to pause it here. This is the same machine, the same patent, but we've designed another patented watering system and another tray that lets us configure the same machine, but now to propagate. So propagating is taking a plant from seed to seedling. And you do that for the first 2 to 3 weeks of that plant's life. And now that lets us have super high density in that one machine. So one of those machines configured to propagate or make seedlings, if you will, we can create 2.5 to 3 million seedlings in one machine each year. It's incredibly efficient.
Dave, what is the, and I presume each type of produce is different, but one unit that's producing, that's propagating, how many other growing containers can that feed?
So one machine configured to feed the cultivators, which is the next machine I'll show you here. One of those propagators will feed 6 to 12 of the cultivators. So it's very, very efficient. And it's why we're so scalable. So here's a cultivator. So different watering system, different tray, but same machine, same patent. But it shows you how flexible it is. So you can kind of swap between configurations, and now you can grow the plant to full size.
Once a machine is configured as a propagation, is it hard to change it back to sort of a cultivator and vice versa, or is it kind of a permanent configuration?
A couple hours. Yeah, it's a couple hours.
Okay.
And so we've also developed something called a fertigator. So this is to deliver water and nutrients to each individual propagator or cultivator on an optimized basis. So depending on the kind of crop you're growing, the stage of that crop. And remember, everything's in a growing chamber, so you can optimize the environment, the water, the nutrition delivery, so that you can really goose the growing of that. We've developed packaging, a brand that our customers can use, which creates nice recurring revenue for us. And there's so many plants that we can at least propagate. If you can grow it hydroponically, we can probably propagate it. And then we cultivate, leafy greens, micro vegetables, herbs, basils, things like that. Here's 24 machines that we sold to a farmer in Calgary, Alberta. This farmer actually also invested in a solar array. So literally the greenest farm in Calgary that's able to now produce 12 months a year, enormous amounts of produce locally. So that's the Cubicfarm growing technology. So we use a fraction of the water. We use no pesticides. It's a completely clean environment. Because of that automation, you literally use every cubic foot of space efficiently, thus the name Cubicfarms, and you really minimize your labor. And because you can grow locally, you're now significantly, cutting down the distance the food needs to travel, far less waste. You're growing a healthier product. You can harvest it live, so that you literally have a much, much longer shelf life, much better tasting. Yeah.
That Calgary facility you showed there, I don't know if that was what, 40 or 50,000 square feet or something like that. But how many acres of open air produce is that kind of equivalent to? Although open air produce in Calgary can't grow 12 months a year, while your container systems can. Can you give us some equivalencies there?
Sure. So it's about for every 2 machines, you're going to replace about an acre of farmland. So in 640 square feet, you can replace, about an acre. But your point is exactly right, Martin, that, in Calgary, you might get 1 turn of lettuce a year, and that's if, Mother Nature cooperates. Whereas, climate change is causing all of these variables: disease, pests, drought, too much heat, too much water. It's interesting how, here in the lower mainland of British Columbia, we've had, within 5 months, we've had, it's way too hot to grow, and then there's way too much water to grow. So, you'd be silly to think that climate change is not dramatically affecting the reliability of farming.
And just to sort of put another, you've literally sold these systems up in the Yukon or Yellowknife or something, right? As well as selling some into like the Middle East, that's.
Yeah, so we've gone as far north as Busby, Alberta, and as far south as Australia. That's being installed in Q2 of 2022, and we've got sales cycles, going all over the place. But in so many places, Salinas Valley in Arizona feed, probably 75 to 80% of North America's, certainly, salad products. And so, so much of this has to be imported. And it's, thousands of liters of diesel per truck, just to go from California to Vancouver, say. twice as much, obviously, if you're going to Toronto or other places in Canada.
And then as well, like just sorry, I'm like feeding you all these gimme kind of things here. Like in Arizona or California, it's not just the shipping it out. They've got having some serious water issues, and you're using, like, even for their own local feed, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Scottsdale. Like they use a tremendous amount of, like, all the water problems they have down there are like they're 95%, I believe, going to agriculture, the water. It's not us people directly using it to flush toilets that's causing the problems. It's like the agricultural system uses a tremendous amount of water, right?
Well, we'll talk about this in a minute, but livestock farming uses almost 70% of our fresh water and about 70% of our farmland as well. It's just not sustainable. And later on in the deck, which everyone, I guess, will get a copy of, I have a link to a 60 Minutes episode of just a month ago, where they talk about the Colorado River and the amount of, the number of states that literally live and die on that, for both, irrigation for farming, water for people, and also generating power. And it simply cannot continue to support people and agriculture. So something's got to give. And so our technology, both for food for people, so not only does it let you localize it, so California and Arizona don't have to keep shipping all of their fresh water in the form of produce, but you can then repurpose land to much more water-friendly purposes. But just a few key stats, and people can see this later, but we're literally 50 times more efficient in using land. And of course, you can reliably grow 12 months a year, and you don't have pests, and you remove those variables. And yeah, probably one of the most exciting things that we've announced lately in Cubicfarms, though, is we're moving to enormous installations. So we've taken a large deposit on our first, what we're calling a fresh hub. So this is a 96 machine configuration. We double stack them in a very efficient ag building. And one of these fresh hubs will replace about 100 acres of field farming, and obviously able to do it locally, and deliver that produce at a price that is 100% competitive with importing. So when you take away all the costs of importing and shipping and all of those variables, and then the waste, on a cost per meal basis, we can now grow locally with a pesticide-free product that is going to have a much longer shelf life, much better for the environment, but the price is head-to-head equivalent. So
how is the pricing and the costing and the production comparable to greenhouse growing? We've been talking, I think, generally about open field stuff, but they're all over, there are greenhouses around all over the place. And that's sort of the de facto standard, I guess, for many things now.
Sure. Greenhouses are sometimes used for growing salad products. So Cubicfarm's technology is being sold to farming groups at the moment that are focused on salad products, which are all being imported. Sometimes greenhouses are used, but often it's too hot in the summer for that kind of crop. And it's just not nearly as efficient because you've only got one layer of growth. So greenhouses are far more often used for vine crops, peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, etc. We can propagate those for the greenhouse industry, but we're not going to grow peppers and cucumbers. Those should be done in a greenhouse. Those are easier products to ship, longer shelf life. They're efficient in a greenhouse. We're able to grow crops that are not nearly as efficient in a greenhouse. So this system, this yield, this price point, this is much more efficient than a greenhouse. But I'm glad you mentioned greenhouse, Martin, because this technology is going to change a slice of the produce world, just like greenhouses did 50 years ago. If you'd have said to farmers 50 years ago, we're going to grow around the world 12 months a year, all your peppers, cucumbers, and tomatoes without soil, and they'll be delicious, and and we'll do it 12 months a year and all over the place, farmers would think that you're nuts. But now most of those crops are grown indoors without soil all around the world 12 months a year, and they're delicious. They're spectacular quality tasting products. This technology, but it's taken a few decades for that to really take off. This technology is going to be like that. It is going to be really efficient for a slice of the produce market that right now we've got to import almost all of it.
And your system isn't good for cucumbers or tomatoes. And is that roughly because they're kind of tall plants? And as well, they've got heavy dangling things going off of them. So if they're moving through the conveyor system, things could fall off and break in that, or?
Well, for example, the salad products that we're growing, we're harvesting every 18 days. It's a very fast turnover coming out of that cultivator. And so our technology is great for high volume, quick growing, short shelf life crops that right now all need to be imported endlessly all the time. So that's the low hanging fruit market, if you will, that this technology should be addressing, and indeed it is. We could propagate, so if you can grow it hydroponically, we can propagate it. So if a greenhouse wanted to save its precious, expensive floor space for cultivating, use our technology to propagate. That is a market that we've considered. We're not doing it yet, but it certainly is on our list of things to do at some point. But we're really focused on those high volume, shorter, cycle crops.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. And we're all eating more of them and needing more of them and importing a huge, and you might have been following, so many of these crops, these leafy green crops have been subject to recalls. There have been several recalls a year of salad products for the last several years in a row. Well, this is so expensive to retailers, food service, restaurant chains, all these sorts of things. More and more people are eating more salad products, yet more and more of these things are being recalled due to listeria and salmonella. So we're growing in a clean environment. There's no, bird droppings on them. They're completely clean. And the odds of them being recalled are, dramatically low.
And yeah, so actually just to drill into that, why they get listeria or whatever, because I've heard some things, it's like this spinach farm or leafy green farm is next to like a big ditch that's got manure or something running into it. And it's in a kind of, is that kind of the cause of it? And that, so you're in a rough, fairly sterile environment and then you get clean inputs, clean outputs?
So we know why a cubic farm grown crop won't be recalled, but why are field crops being recalled so often? There's a few schools of thought. One, because of course it's getting harder and harder to irrigate. You're drawing from poor and poorer quality sources of water. And you're literally, if you're pulling from the stream that's near the runoff from the big dairy farm, and I've also had one fellow recently suggest, well, because of climate change, birds are literally migrating later in the year. They're defecating on the crops when that crop is now just about to be harvested at a time when that plant is actually less able to protect itself. So I think there's a lot of argument as to, and so I'm not for a moment suggesting I know exactly why we're seeing this more and more, but we are seeing it more and more. So a better idea is just let's grow these things. If we can grow them now cost competitively, locally, massively reduce the shipping, have a better product that's very unlikely to ever be recalled. Well, let's do that. And that's exactly what we're developed this technology for, and what farmers who are buying our technology are setting out to do.
Great.
We aren't the only company in the indoor farming space. And so before I talk about the other division, I'll just sort of share a little bit. These are some high profile groups that are also in the indoor farming space. They've raised significant amounts of capital of late. We've raised a relatively small amount of capital, but I would argue that we've actually done far more. And so if you judge a company on its ability to deploy capital efficiently, we're fairly capital light because we're just focused on the technology and then selling that to farmers and helping them be successful, as opposed to everyone else in the space is developing technology and then building sort of large warehouse farms, growing produce, packaging that, and then shipping that to often retail and often at a premium price. So we're focused on helping farmers localize, diversify so that they can grow what they haven't been able to grow locally before. So we're helping farmers as opposed to most others are competing with farmers. And so as a strategy, I'm much more interested in not competing with, hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars of legacy infrastructure. I want to feed that industry. And so we are supplying farmers, not competing with them. And I liken our technology to, tractor 2.0. John Deere doesn't try and own every farm that it sells a tractor to, or Mahindra, or, they are wanting to help farmers be successful. So that's we're staying in very focused on the technology side.
But you talk about, which is obviously a market selling to farmers, but at the same time, you could put a system in the top of a building in downtown Manhattan and sort of the farmer 2.0, like have it really close to the supply chain. It's not necessarily just going to kind of the old school farmer, right?
So I'm actually not a believer in the romantic rooftop farm.
Okay.
It's still farming, and it needs to be efficient. It needs to be on inexpensive land as possible. You're still growing food. You still want to keep your costs down, and it's still farming. You have trucks coming and going, taking things away. It's still farming. So it should be the ideal place. So our fresh hubs, we've made this first announcement. We've now got several other in our sales cycle that are emerging that we'll be announcing next year. A fresh hub's about $20 million. It's almost 100 machines. This is growing an enormous amount of produce, and this is what the market wants. To really stop importing from faraway places, we need enough produce being grown locally. And that's what this kind of design and infrastructure is going to let us do. Romantic farms on rooftops are an interesting idea, and I'm delighted that people are doing it. But we're focused on big commercial scale that truly lets you stop importing. So we've now got multiple fresh hub deals in our sales pipeline that will truly let you stop importing. They should be located near a distribution center. So near a Cisco or a Gordon Food Service or a big retailer's distribution, because you can live and die in produce growing on your shipping costs. Nobody does last mile delivery better than food service. So we've actually worked very closely with food service groups, and our farmers are selling to food service groups, and then they're shipping to retail, restaurant chains, things like that. So big commercial scale.
The people that are interested in these, either the smaller or the fresh hubs, would they also then have, let's say, greenhouses where they grow tomatoes and cucumbers, and it's sort of part of their portfolio of produce they supply? So it really is augmenting that?
Yeah, so there's several deals that you'll see next year where that's exactly right. It's farmers that are diversifying. We've got one sales cycle that's nearly completed. It's a large potato farmer in Ontario, and they're delighted to be able to take a small part of their land, very small, and they can take the crappiest part. Every farm's got this little corner that's never been as productive. Take the worst piece of land, put the system on. Now you're able to grow 12 months a year. You have infrastructure, staff, sales, customers, growing experience. Now you can diversify, do this 12 months a year, and no matter, it's a risk, it's a defensive, offensive strategy for your farm. So this farmer is very excited about handing to the next generation a technology-enabled farm that lets them diversify and mitigate climate change. Drought is a bigger challenge than I think most people realize. COVID's on the news every day. Drought should be on the news every day. It's one of the biggest threats to everything. And so the more we can grow on less land, using less water, near where people live, we have to do that in earnest.
Thank you.
So we've talked a bit about our technologies that we make available to grow produce and food for people. Now, feed for livestock. This is actually a bigger and even a more acutely needed technology. So how would we replace this lovely image here of cows grazing maybe in South Wales or something? Because this is almost fiction now because of climate change and drought, lack of land, etc. So how do you grow grazing land, fodder, and feed indoors at commercial scale everywhere on Earth reliably, no matter what's happening outside? This is how. So this is our HydroGreen live green animal feed growing system. It's enormous. It's 70 feet long, 20 feet high, 8 feet wide. It's 8 layers high, and it's a fully automated live green animal feed growing system. And when I mean fully automated, I mean just that. You press a button, and then the machine automatically feeds, seeds itself, water, lighting, and now you're seeing a 6-day time lapse of grow. So we go from seeding to harvest every 6 days. It's incredibly fast. So instead of just giving an animal grain and hay, we're sprouting that grain, and now you're giving them a live green feed 12 months a year that's actually better than grass-fed. So after 6 days, you press the button. Now the machine will automatically harvest itself, and it comes off the end like a 70-foot long roll of carpet, and you harvest everything. You harvest the sprouted grain, the root, the top, everything. We've developed this sizer. It then goes through this shredder that literally chops it up. It then falls onto a conveyor belt. That's taken out to the feed wagon. It's mixed in with the rest of their ration. And it's literally like putting the most healthy, nutrient-rich, accessible nutrition possible, like a gravy almost, mixing with the rest of their ration. And the animals absolutely love it. They devour it. This is the most efficient, nutritious feed you could possibly feed to livestock. So dairy, beef, camel, racehorse, goat, chicken.
What are you actually growing? What's the crop?
So wheat. So we'll do wheatgrass, barley, triticale. There's lots of different grains that we can grow, and it'll depend on your livestock and where you are and what the other part of your rations are, so that you can literally optimize what you're feeding them to be the most efficient nutrition to deliver them.
And I guess you say there's a 6-day growing cycle on it. So if you've got 6 layers, then you're producing you're producing new food every day to feed them. So they've always got that fresh fruit. Is that kind of how the structure of it works? So that's all the multiple layers, or?
Yeah, so that machine I showed you is actually 8 layers high, but in theory, you're absolutely correct. So we have 2 sizes of machine. The machine I showed you in the video is our 70-foot long, 8 layers high, and we sell those 6 at a time, so that you will actually harvest one entire machine every day. Gotcha. And then we have one that's 6 layers high and 40 feet long, and that you could buy one at a time. We typically sell 2 at a time. But that you could harvest 1 layer a day if you had a small, say 50 head of beef cows or something like that. But this system is far more than just delivering live green feed. This lets you use far less land, far less water, and yet feed the animals better than they've ever been fed. And we've now got the data that is supporting to prove how much more significantly these animals will perform. So delivering more milk, a better quality meat, higher birth rates, and even a reduction of methane. So feeding animals optimally actually rewards the animal, and who will then reward the farmer with far better performance. So it not only lets you have far more animals per acre now, because you don't need as much grazing lands, you don't have to grow as much feed stocks. And now you, even in a drought-stricken area, every single day, and think of these farmers, they've got thousands of mouths to feed every day. They've got fresh green feed that the animals love that they can get every single day. But one of the biggest things that is affecting livestock farmers is drought. So a lot of people don't realize that 70% of the world's ag lands are used for livestock farming. So grazing lands, growing feedstocks, etc. And a similar amount of fresh water is earmarked to livestock. This is the US drought monitor from 11 years ago, and this is from a couple months ago. And it actually stretches into Canada, into the prairies, and it is unsustainable. So drought is really crippling the livestock industry. But this lets you use a fraction of the fresh water. We use about 5% of the fresh water that you would. So think of all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres that you now don't have to grow in feedstocks. And yet you've got this reliable on-farm feed that is actually far more nutritious. We don't use any pesticides, no fertilizer. So you go from seed to superfeed every 6 days. So instead of just giving an animal grain and hay as a large part of their ration, you're now actually giving them this live green feed. And when you grow feed and then harvest the whole thing and feed it to them right away, all of those nutrients and enzymes are readily available for that animal to absorb. So think if you sat down and ate a bowl of popcorn and you hadn't popped it first. Most of that nutrition is going to pass right through you. But when you sprout that grain, that animal is able to absorb that nutrition. So there's significant animal benefits and environmental benefits as well.
Is there, the feed augments the current hay or whatever else they're using? It's not a full, you're not producing their full diet on that thing, are you?
That's exactly right. So for a dairy, it would be 15 to 20% of the ration, which is still a lot. Like these animals are eating 100 pounds of feed a day.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. And a beef can be 40 to 60% of the ration. We've seen 25 to 40% on the beef side is typical.
All right.
So again, just, you know, so a dozen of those large machines that I showed you in the video are going to replace about 500 acres of feedstocks land, and only take, you know, an acre of land for those 12 machines. So you're 500 to 1. It's very, very efficient. And then same with the water. So we have a little bit of data that we've been capturing, and I'll share this with you and your audience, Martin. We've been testing what happens when you feed livestock, specifically dairy cows, with live green animal feed. And we've contracted a group called Crosswind Jerseys to do that. This is a 2,000 Jersey cow dairy farm in the US that is it's year after year in the top 10 best performing dairies in the US. So top milk production, top milk fat, top animal reproductive health. These are the Ferraris of dairy cows. And so, and they've got all the equipment to be able to test and provide the data back to us. So we've been able to prove that cows will eat more. I mean, think about what a dairy cow's job is: eat, make milk, eat, have a baby. And we've been able to prove that we can get these dairy cows to eat significantly more, produce far more milk. And one of the most valuable things that we've seen is they'll actually have more, a much higher fertility rate. So for each individual percentage point that you can increase the fertility rate, it's worth about $66 a year to that farmer per animal. We've seen a 17% increase in fertility. So 17 times 66, you've got an $1,100 a year plus value. We've seen about $500 a year of increased milk production per year per animal to that farmer. So we'll be releasing some of these data studies early in the new year, but we're really excited about, because it's not just you know, giving that farmer that reliable feed. How does that farmer then pay for it, and how do they actually increase the value of their farm? And now they can have more animals per acre and yet treat them and feed them better than they've ever been fed. So we're doing all of this near an innovation center that we built in South Dakota, where we've got a bunch of our machines. We're growing the feed, we're shipping it to Crosswinds, and they're capturing this data for us. It's one thing to be good for the environment and to be good for your herd and to treat them well and to be profitable and all these things, but you've got to address the environmental impact of livestock farming. So we're very delighted that a Canadian university actually undertook a study on feeding animals using HydroGreen. and it showed a significant reduction in greenhouse gases. There's a couple reasons for that. This report's available on our website. You're welcome to go and look at that. But we're also seeing now, doing an additional study, significant further greenhouse gas reductions beyond this study. So we'll have more to share about that in the new year. And we're doing the same kind of studies on the beef side. So we've seen significant improvements for dairy cows, and now we're seeing the same thing for beef. If you go on our website, there's testimonials from beef farmers, and one literally multi-generational beef cattle rancher that was going to have to sell his farm, sell his herd because of drought. He's now bought 2 machines, and he's now asking himself, how big can I grow my herd? So he's literally gone from having to sell his herd and get out of the business to I can stay in and I can grow, because he can so reliably feed his animals using so little water. It's literally the drought. Is the quality beef they've ever seen? Yeah.
The business model for this is that the rancher would be growing this themselves, or would there be like sort of third-party farmers who would grow it and then sell it to all the farmers, the ranchers and livestock people in the region?
Yeah, so right now, all the systems that we've sold, these farmers are doing it themselves. So they are growing it for their herd. It's on farm. It's very reliable feed every day that has no shipping costs, and doesn't matter what's happening outside, too much water, too much, or drought, they can feed reliably. Doing feed as a service is certainly something that we have contemplated, and I'm sure you'll see it in the not too distant future.
All right.
We're very excited about this. This customer is installing 12 of those big machines that you saw in the video in Wyoming. This is being installed at Burnett Dairy. This is a 17,000 head, 30,000 acre beef and dairy in Wyoming. And so they're putting in 12 of those big machines. That'll feed about 2,000 head. And they're actually building the site to be able to double that quickly to 24 and then go to 48. So we're really excited about this. This is being built right now. And this will be up and running at the end of Q1. And it'll be the largest live green animal feed installation in the world. And we're super excited about this, and so you'll hear lots about this soon. One of the things we're also very excited about is we've launched a dealer network. So this is a group of beef and dairy. Our dealers are going to be reselling HydroGreen. So just like you have you go to a John Deere dealer to buy a tractor, we have now authorized dealers that will be selling HydroGreen. So we have some in the dairy industry, some in the beef industry, and so they've committed to about $20 million in machine sales for 2022. So we bring them in, they get trained, and they are able to then support aftermarket support. This is a very important thing in the livestock space. These farmers have thousands of mouths to feed every day. And so if something happens, they want to know that there's someone down the street. Really, the last few things, besides that dealer network, we're bringing on another 7 or 8 dealers over the next couple of quarters. And our go-to-market strategy for HydroGreen is through that dealer network. So we're really excited about that. And we'll be able to show off that huge installation that's going on in Wyoming. The last couple of things I'll just say about the business. We're really excited about 2022. We're really going from that sort of, prove it out stage to now real ramp up in growth. So really significant sales next year for both Cubic and HydroGreen. So entering that nice phase of growth, and we've got really exciting deals that we're working on there. Just a couple of quick things about us. We're founded by farmers. So Cubicfarms was founded by career Dutch greenhouse farmers. HydroGreen was founded by a career Dutch cattleman that was really struggling to feed his animals reliably. And so, everything we do is through that lens of what works on the farm, what works for the farmer and the livestock. We developed one of the best tech teams in the space. The former GM of Microsoft Canada, Edo DeMartin, is now our Chief Technology Officer, and has been able to attract some of the best in the world. And so also partnering with Microsoft, building out our platform, the data, the control, the AI, the machine learning that we have. You'll see much more of that coming out next year from us, but just literally world class. And then finally, we're one of the few public companies that have made our employees shareholders. And it's really important that, to me, that those that are creating the value also share in the upside. So we've rolled out a employee share purchase program. And so our staff are owners. And we're just really proud of that. And we've attracted just a top shelf group. So I'll maybe stop there, being mindful of time. And if there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, I've got a few, and then we have a couple from the audience there. So audience, please throw in any questions that come to you. Could you've talked about like how efficient it is on sort of an energy, water, sort of ecological basis. Could you talk about the economics of it? And you've referred to some stuff like how much does a system cost? It's not just cost recovery. You get sort of value enhancements with your cows getting bigger and fatter and better produce to get higher prices. Like, what does a system cost? What's kind of an ROI on it? Things like that.
Sure. So that large installation that I showed you on the screen there, those 12 machines going into Burnett Dairy, the cost of that for the machines and the building is going to be about $6 million. It'll feed about 2,000 cows. And the data that we have been able to gather from Crosswinds shows anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a year per animal in increased value to that farmer. So a capital payback in literally 1.5 to 3 years. So very, very efficient. But more than that, now that farmer is able to have that reliability. They're able to expand their herd without needing to have more land. And they're also able to tell their customers that they're on their way to net zero. All of these farmers have to be able, McDonald's wants to know that their meat is on it. Yes, this is an organic farm and sustainable, and it's on its way to net zero. Nestle is going to want to be able to say, yes, all our milk is on so we're able to give those farmers that story. You can't get to net zero in livestock farming without addressing feed. And we have the best technology on earth to address that. Water, land usage, animal performance, greenhouse gas emissions. This is the best technology to do that. And so I think a very quick capital payback. And then on the Cubicfarm side, that fresh hub, the economics of that, it's about $20 million of cost for machines and building. It'll generate about $10 million a year for that customer in the high 30s gross margin. And so, a 3-4 year capital payback is absolutely reasonable. Yeah.
And that's for the fresh hubs thing. For the on the Cubicfarm, the original side of the business, like you sell them, you don't just sell one container at a time. They're in modules of like 8, I think is the minimum.
No, the smallest now is really about 20.
Oh, really?
It'll be 2 propagators, 18 to, or 2 or 3 propagators, and then, 18 to 20, 22 cultivators, and then a fertigator to deliver the water nutrients. One fertigator will do 100 of the modules. So, it's really built for commercial scale.
Yeah.
And because you want to plant the whole machine on day 1, come back on day 18, harvest the whole thing, go again. Well, now you're harvesting an enormous amount, and your customers are going to want deliveries a couple times a week at least. And so you've got to be able to harvest several machines a couple times a week. And our technology is good for commercial scale. There's other technologies that are great for sort of small hobby farming, small town in middle of nowhere. We're built to feed, big distribution centers.
Okay. You've been public for what, about 3 years, and you're working on things prior to going public. Your sales have been slowly building here, and you're talking about, it looks like next year is going to be, I don't know, are we expecting next year to be kind of the breakthrough year in sales? And I guess, what have you been, because you had these systems beforehand where you just sort of fine tuning everything, getting the sales pitch, getting your dealer network, so to speak, get together on the livestock feed system. Like what have you been, and you've raised $60 million, which is a lot, but not a lot of money at the same time. Like, where are we at in terms of commercialization and really launching this to the marketplace in a big scale?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. 2022 is going to be that breakout year for revenue. And so HydroGreen, so we've been public for 2 years and 4 months. We've owned HydroGreen for about 2 years. And when we had acquired it, they'd sold sort of a handful of machines. We've completely re-commercialized that, put it on our platform, scaling it up, building out this dealer network, getting manufacturing down. We've built our own plant. We've done a lot in a couple of years, and now HydroGreen is really going to go on a tear. We also needed the data to support the sale of the machine to the farmer, and we now have that data. And so you'll see HydroGreen just absolutely take off next year. Same with Cubicfarms. We have done several installations. We've been able to learn an awful lot of lessons from those, improve the machine. But two things happened. One, 2021 was a supply chain challenging year for Cubicfarms and everyone else in the world. And so it delayed not only some of the things we were doing, but also our customers, getting their sites ready, getting buildings built, getting trades, all those things. And so, that saying, never waste a crisis. So we haven't lost any sales. They're going to fall into 2022. But now that we've announced that Fresh Hub deal, that's more and more of those Fresh Hub deals have gone into our pipeline, and that's really the direction we're going for both Cubic and HydroGreen, to larger and larger installations. And so once you're able to sort of show off, those, capture the data, et cetera, it just, that sort of momentum is really what we're moving towards, that big commercial scale. Yeah.
And I guess when farmers see, they can go tour one of your Fresh Hubs and then see it working, get the economics off of who's showing it off, that it just makes a lot, if it's all working and making sense, it's a heck of a lot easier sale when you've got real examples of it, as opposed to sort of typical sort of startup type troubles where, like, yeah, believe in the dream, it sounds great, but let's see the evidence of it.
Yeah, so our first Fresh Hub will be installed the last half of 2022. In the meantime, we are installing, we'll do 4 or 5 sort of those 20 to 26 machine Cubicfarm installations next year. So, we'll have several new farms coming on, but that first big Fresh Hub you'll see towards the end of the year. And then in Q1, we'll have that big HydroGreen installation done. So there's lots of 1, 2, 3, 4 HydroGreen machines that have been installed in Canada and the US. But to have a really big, installation on a big dairy beef farm with 12 of those new big machines, we're so excited to be able to show that off and get that data. It's so all these things just let us have that momentum, that leverage, and it just, momentum feeds momentum.
And let's say for 2022 or more, a couple years in advance, what's going to be the bigger business, or is it going to be kind of equivalent with the HydroGreen or the original Cubicfarm? Which is going to generate more revenues?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. In 2022, I think it will be Cubicfarms still. In 2023, it depends how many Fresh Hub deals we ink. The need for HydroGreen is so acute, and the data is now so compelling, and the pressure on livestock farmers to reduce their environmental footprint is enormous. One of the biggest emitters in the world of greenhouse gases is livestock farming, one of the biggest, methane specifically. Our feed reduces methane, and so quite dramatically. And so 2023, I think it could be a toss-up. I believe by 24, it could highly likely be HydroGreen. But you know, whatever I say, I'm going to be wrong.
Yeah. But even then saying it's a bit of a toss-up, it'll be roughly kind of 50-50, maybe swing one way or the other way, but it's not 70-30 right out of the gates or anything like that.
Yeah, Cubic could be bigger in 22, 23, it might get a little more even. 24, I think it may be a toss-up. But yeah.
All right. We do have a bunch of questions here. So let's go through these. What is the ongoing maintenance required on your units? Does Cubicfarms do the maintenance, or does the customer service their own equipment? What is the lifespan and that?
Yeah, so on HydroGreen, relatively little maintenance. The main maintenance things are pumps and sprayers and things like that. So it's a very slow-moving machine that actually only moves, when you're harvesting it, it moves for 15 minutes when it's harvesting. When it's seeding, it moves for about an hour. So this is not doing much moving. Then you've got sprayers and pumps. To be honest, it's the things around the machine that will require more maintenance. The conveyor belt that takes the feed out, that's probably, you know, the biggest maintenance item. And the customer would maintain these themselves. All of these farmers have, you know, their own maintenance staff, and every farmer is very, very resourceful. And so, and there's nothing overly rocket science about these. On the Cubicfarm side, again, we train them how to maintain them. We can send someone if needed. Most things the farmer is able to do themselves. Lifespan's a long time. Everything's stainless steel, robust, slow moving. We ultimately don't know how long the lifespan will be, but it will be a very, very, very long time. I akin it to, you know, if a greenhouse, which is made of glass and aluminum, you can get 30 to 50 years. I'd like to say that a stainless steel growing chamber, you know, can do that. But you're going to have pumps, chains. Eventually, you'll upgrade lights just because the technology makes it worthwhile doing. Air handling units, you know, 10 to 20 year life cycle on those. So these are just, you know, kind of typical industrial. Think of this as food factory is really what it is. So that same kind of conveyor belt maintenance
breaks, you replace the pump. If a motor breaks, you replace the motor, and just like any other factory, the factory doesn't just sort of stop working one day unless you don't maintain it.
Exactly, and we are working on sort of maintenance packages. There's several areas of recurring revenue. So for HydroGreen, we see being able to sell an awful lot of seed and actually developing our own genetic of seed that doesn't compete with someone, say, making beer, you know, doing barley and wheat or something, that really marries the cost, animal performance, machine performance, you know, get those things right. On Cubicfarms, we sell packaging, seeds, nutrients, substrates, and we actually have a brokerage team that will help our customers sell their produce, because we've gotten good at selling the message and the story. And so when we add a new farm, they're like entering a network. So there's almost a hint of franchise-ness to it, if that's a word. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. And all right. We have a question here. Like, these are all running on electricity and power. What if there's an extended power outage for multiple days? Do these farms typically have backup systems, or the one in Calgary would look solar driven? That's all sort of an engineering, like what kind of backups the farmer wants to install.
Yeah, so HydroGreen uses relatively little energy. The biggest user of energy for HydroGreen is the environment. The lights are only on the last sort of 18 hours a bit. It's not doing much other than watering, and you do most of that even on the first day. So if your power went out on a HydroGreen, with a very small generator, you could still harvest. So I would imagine on a large farm, they're going to have a backup generator. For Cubicfarms, in most situations, if the power goes out and you don't have a backup generator, for the first 24 hours or so, you're going to be absolutely fine. And we've experienced that firsthand. A power out longer than that, you're phoning the portable generator company and you're bringing in some power. Most farms, though, of any size are going to have a modest backup generator at least, so critical systems can keep going, and you could swap from machine to machine just from probably keep from freezing would be your biggest thing. But it would take a long time and have to be very cold for that to happen. And most power, is up in 24 hours, right?
I'm curious, maybe the Fresh Hub or one of your smaller Cubicfarm systems, what would, off the top of your head, do you know how much power they would draw? Because they do have lights and motors and stuff going on. What would a system like that draw?
Sure. So each module is going to use about $600 a month of energy for average North American energy prices.
Okay.
So energy and labor are probably going to be a very similar price for your operating costs. Yeah.
Right. And we have a question here is, why are you not becoming the farmer or working with the farmer on a joint venture basis? Yeah,
that's a great question. So there's sort of a couple aspects to that. One, there are some businesses that you can operate centrally and do them anywhere on earth. Starbucks is the same coffee cup, training, menu, decor, largely. But farming is still growing things, and the variations from country to country on taste, seasonality, packaging, pricing, go-to-market, those type of relationships, it's a different business. So you could ask John Deere the same question, right? Why don't they own every company or farm that they sell a combine on? It's still farming, and we don't want to compete with farmers. We want to support them. So it would take a smarter CEO than me to think that they could operate every farm in every city in every country on earth with all of the variables. And there's thousands of things that can be grown. And so we're really disciplined to focus on the technology. We do work closely, especially with our first few farms. We work very closely with them. We call them farmer partners, not customers. And we've learned an awful lot from them. Our very first farm we did do as a joint venture, in fact, to learn. And we actually just bought that farm to be able to use it as a commercial research center. So we have our R&D research center, and now we have a commercialization research center where you can truly commercialize that production site. You can't do R&D and commercialization in the same place. You just can't. You got to run it food safe, and you can't tinker. And so having two sites. Yeah, but that's my answer. We're being very focused on the technology side. Yeah. And you've addressed this regarding recurring revenues. Large part is just one-time sales. You sell the big equipment and so forth. You've got consumables, the packaging, and maybe some seeds in that. Is there any kind of a SaaS or maintenance kind of revenue on it to stay, like you plug it in and you're charging whatever 10% of the sale price a year for maintenance and support and that sort of a thing? Yeah, two parts to that answer. So we do have a support subscription fee that all of our customers pay on a per module basis. And we are developing outstanding software right now. So in the future, yes, I do see software revenue. In fact, our platform is working so well, and we're operating both the HydroGreen technology and the Cubicfarm technology on that same platform. And I'm not saying this for 2022, but I do see, looking into the crystal ball, the ability to have software as a revenue stream for us. That's how optimistic we are about how well our platform is functioning. Because there's lots of software out there that's been built for greenhouses, field farming, precision farming, and there's some great tech out there. We have not seen that for the true automated commercial scale indoor farming, which is what we are. So we're investing in it for ourselves and our customers, but then we also see it being able to operate if we acquire another company with another, SKU of things that we're able to then grow, or to simply make that software available as a standalone product.
Gotcha. And you mentioned like your Microsoft guy and artificial intelligence. I would think as you get more and more of these units out there, there's a lot of AI learning you could do, like you sort of a tweak here, a tweak there, and get some big data and sort of learn some optimization type stuff that you could then roll out to the whole network.
Yeah, and we're seeing it now. We're doing it now. We're getting some of our best grows. The amount of data that we're able to capture now is just growing exponentially. When you give some of the smartest technology industry leaders a blank canvas and a very specific mandate, you'd be shocked at how fast they can make it happen and how well it comes together under the right leader. And that's what we've got. In other companies I've run before, I've had, as many CEOs had, you have these technology projects and they end up, costing twice as much and taking twice as long. That's not what we're experiencing at all. Things are happening quickly and going very, very well. So I'm really bullish on how good our team is and what the value that's going to bring to us and our customers, and the value of that data that we're capturing. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're coming to an end here. We're well over an hour. So thanks, Dave, for extending, giving us so much of your time. And just, I guess, on any sort of wrap up conclusions, you've talked about some things we're to be expecting in the new year. Could you just sort of summarize what kind of news flow in the first 3, 6, or whatever, 12 months of next year? What kind of news should we be expecting? Big fresh hub sales, or I guess possibly some M&A in the pipeline, but just the type of things to be keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, so I've been saying to our team here, by the end of Q2, you're barely going to recognize us. We've got several deals or several farms that we're installing in the first half of the year. So we know we're going to have really nice revenue because those installations are underway now. We can't book revenue until we deliver the systems. The customers are now getting those sites ready so that we can deliver. We're going to have the world's biggest live green animal feed installation in Burnett. We will have I'm sure more fresh hub type deals, multiple fresh hubs that will be coming out. We'll have announced more dealers on the HydroGreen side, and each of those has a network of customers that they're excited to be selling to. And so it's just, we'll have far more data, both on the Cubicfarm side, the HydroGreen side. All of that just pushes the momentum of additional sales. So it's really going to this sales execution, install, book revenue, announce more deals. You'll just see us going from strength to strength. So by the end of the second quarter, I think we're a very, very different looking business. And then I think by the end of the year, we'll have, we've got 3 groups covering us now. They all give guidance for more than 40 million of revenue. I'm quite confident of being able to hit that at the end of 22 with a significant order book going into 23. So we're just going to be a vastly different company because we will have done so much, right? You leave it's like Tesla, they had the Roadster and it was fine, but then when they launched the Model S and then had a bunch of charging stations, you just have that exponential growth because you have the confidence to buy it, and that's what we're going to be able to deliver to so many farmers, initially in North America, but then beyond. Yeah.
Sorry, and just something popped into my head as you were saying this. Could you just quickly talk about the cash cycle? Like, how much cash, like, do people put a big deposit down? You only recognize the revenues when it's installed, but when do you get paid and so forth? And does that require a lot of capital? And I guess the second part to that question is, you just raised, I believe it was $20 million. Is that, do you have enough fuel in the tank to really launch this, or are you going to still have to go back to the markets a bunch?
Yeah, no, we absolutely do have enough, because it's not only that, we already had some money in the bank. We've just, topped up our balance sheet, and, the first half of next year, we will have meaningful revenue, and there's several deposits. Yeah. So to answer your first part of your question, yes, we have a great deposit schedule that pretty much covers our manufacturing cycle. We're also very, very close to announcing a financing deal for HydroGreen, that it'll be just like you can get financing for your John Deere tractor, you can get financing for your HydroGreen. Well, that's going to help our cash flow, our dealers, and then their customers. This will be a financeable piece of farm equipment. And so you'll see that happen. So between the capital that's on our balance sheet now and deposits and revenue from the installations that we already have that are underway right now, we absolutely have enough on the balance sheet. So we won't need to go to market again for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Gotcha. And just roughly on the equipment you sell, both on the HydroGreen and the Cubicfarm, what are your rough gross margins? Or once you sort of scale up, what's sort of a normalized gross margin in that business?
Yeah, I think normalized steel prices certainly went up, and that did impact. So I think currently you'd be looking in the 30, 35, I think by the end of the year, getting to the high 30s. And I think into 2023, getting into the 40s for both Cubic and HydroGreen margins. And I think with scale beyond that, getting into the high 40s and cracking 50 is absolutely, possible, barring some, calamity in the world. Yeah.
Well, and your clients are going to be buying on an ROI kind of basis. And if you can show that there's good ROI, then you're able to capture a little bit more of that yourself, presumably with by raising prices.
Well, the better our systems get, the more efficient we get at building them. That helps margin. The more volume, that helps margin. But yeah, being able to prove that this, has real ROI, which we're just, over 2022, we're going to be able to do that better than we've ever done before. And that's why I'm just so excited about 2022.
Well, we're almost there.
Yeah, we are.
All right. I do have a question, but we can't really address it on the call here. Someone's asking for a comp table showing how, like financial, I guess, how you compare. Maybe you can email that out to me offline, and I can distribute it that way, or we can discuss that offline to see if there's a way to address that.
Well, we're one of the few that are focused on technology. Everyone else is sort of focused on being a farmer.
Okay.
So the direct comparables are, So Calera, there's another, but from a comp perspective, our market cap versus theirs, our sales and our sales projection versus theirs, we're a bargain. One of the things I do want to do, in the not too distant future, is be able to uplist in the U.S. I think this business, it's globally applicable, and I think we need the exposure of being on a U.S. big board. So, whether or not we do that in 2022, I'm not sure, but I do want to get that done because we need that exposure. Yeah.
Dave, thank you very much for taking the time to walk us through the story. Thank you very much. Have a great holiday season, and hopefully we'll get you back in the new year and we can see how things are progressing through 2022. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Martin. Bye for now.
Cheers.